Welcome to the Business Spotlight Series. My name is Scott Lawson, certified business coach with ActionCOACH of Coastal Bend in South Texas. I'll be your host today. I'm very excited to have our special guest, Cynthia Montoya. I'm going to call her Cindy, though, on our show. Cindy is the owner of KAC Consulting. Today, we're going to talk with Cindy about her business, her journey to business ownership, some challenges, some successes, and even have her share what it's really like to own and operate a business as an entrepreneur. If this is your first time on the channel, and even if it's not, be sure to like and subscribe so you get notifications when we publish new content. Well, Cindy, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Scott. Thank you. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. Good to be here.
We appreciate you being here too. It's great to have you on. I'm going to start things off with a kind of a basic question, looking back in time and looking at how everything started. We really do want to talk about your business today, but first, let's just talk about you. How did your journey start, Cindy?
Well, that's a great question, Scott. My journey's been kind of a long one. My dad was a small business owner, and so growing up in that atmosphere, I saw the struggles that small business owners face.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I was typing on a typewriter. That kind of dates me a little bit, but on an old typewriter, typing invoices during the summers when I was 12, 13 years old. So kind of got that little bit of a bookkeeping background. And I just wanted to help small business owners. So fast forward, as an adult, I worked for a CPA firm for a few years, and their focus was not necessarily on small business owners, but on high wealth individuals, which was great, but that wasn't what I loved. I wanted to help entrepreneurs, people with that spirit that wanted to forge ahead and go it alone. And so I decided to do it on my own and went out and we hung up our shingle and started KAC Consulting.
Great. All right. I love hearing the backstory. That's interesting. You had a passion for the small business owner. That's kind of the way we are too. So we've got a lot in common in that area. So now let's talk about the business. What was interesting to you about starting a business?
Well, we started our business in 2013. It's a family business. It was originally meant to be me and my daughter and my son. Ended up me and my daughter and my son-in-law, and we have another close friend that's our employee. We're a team of 4, and I've been an enrolled agent for 17 years, which means that most people say enrolled agent. What's that?
Right.
But what that means is I'm licensed by the IRS to represent taxpayers before the IRS. And so my daughter, Caitlin, she just passed all 3 parts of her special enrollment examination. So she's going to be an enrolled agent very soon, as she gets her license back. And so in that capacity, we do tax work. However, the real focus of our business is helping small business owners find financial clarity through bookkeeping, tax planning, and advising.
I see. Great. Now, I've got to ask, why the name KAC?
Well, as I mentioned, it was supposed to be me, my son, and my daughter, which our initials are KAC.
Okay.
But my son decided to opt out, and so we kind of rebranded here recently, and we use those letters for something meaningful. So K is know your numbers, A is allocate and adjust, and C is be consistent.
Okay, great. I was interested to learn if your son-in-law had to change his name to still fit the brand, but you just changed the branding to represent something else. That's great.
That's funny.
How about your role, Cindy? What is your personal role in the business? Among the four-person team, what does Cindy do?
Well, that's kind of a hard one to answer.
Well, it is.
Being a small team, we of course, have multiple responsibilities just to keep the wheels turning. But I see my role as being twofold: to do the client work, which is the part that I love, crunching numbers and educating clients. But I also have the responsibility to lead my team, and I think that's the harder job, knowing the right decisions to make at the right time. That's where I struggle a little bit there, and have to constantly read and try to be better.
I think it's pretty common for us to find, and when you work with business owners, you may be able to confirm or deny this, I don't know, but it's pretty common for us to find that a business owner or entrepreneur often gets into the trade or the business that they knew best, and they may have been excellent at the day-to-day operation of whatever that type of business would be. But when they actually stepped out and, as you said, hung the shingle, it created a whole new set of responsibilities, and they had to put on quite a few different hats. And we often find that that's where they need some assistance sometimes. Very few entrepreneurs and business owners actually went to school to learn business. They typically went through an education for whatever their trade is. Or
That's really where we come in too, is
oh,
it's interesting that you bring that up, because what we found is that like you said, entrepreneurs don't necessarily have a mind for business.
mm-hmm,
And so that's why people like us, who are numbers people,
mm-hmm,
are around to help you with that piece. And so we've found in being in business that there's some areas that we do not thrive at. Like, for
mm,
example, marketing. We're not great at it. As most numbers people are not. We like to sit in our little corner and crunch our numbers and
mm-hmm.
and hide. But that, so we've learned along the way that as a business owner, you can't operate a business in a vacuum. You have to have a team, you have to have a community. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's important to lean on, to find the right people, to create that community around you who can that you can hire to do the things that you don't do well.
Mm-hmm. So very true. I often tell business owners the language of business is the numbers, and
Mhm.
and I felt like maybe you were headed down this path a little bit. For a lot of them, numbers is not their language. They need you.
Yes, true, true.
Right.
We try to teach them to speak that language, but sometimes it is like learning a foreign language.
Right, right. Yeah, that's important too. I mean, when I say it's not their language, it needs to be at least in some capacity, but they may not need to dig into it to the degree that you do. But they certainly need to understand the financial statements and the language of business. Through relationship with you, they're able to do much better with. That's great. Um, I'd like to kind of look back in time a little bit and ask you about mistakes. Can you think of mistakes that you made along the way and what you learned from them?
Oh, Scott, there's so many.
Oh,
So many. I'll try to focus in on just a couple. One is, it's a mistake that we're still in the process of fixing, but
oh.
taking on less than ideal clients. So,
Mm,
as
mhm,
many business owners do, when I first started this business, I took on anyone who
mhm,
could pay me, and sometimes those who couldn't, to do
mhm,
anything remotely related to tax and bookkeeping.
mhm,
And so we ended up with way too many clients doing work that we didn't love for too little money.
mhm,
And I ended up burned out and my team
mm,
suffered. And so over the last couple of years, we've really kind of let go of some of the, and it's hard, it's a hard transition,
mhm,
but we've let go of some of those less than ideal clients
mhm,
and really niched down and figured out what our focus is,
mhm,
because we're able to provide better service to fewer clients for more
mhm.
money when we know exactly what we do and how we do it. But we didn't start with a menu of services and
Okay.
processes to provide those services. Again, we just kind of, whatever anybody needs, we can do it. We're your people. Um,
Mhm,
but we found really quickly that we couldn't best serve our clients that way, and doing too many things for too many people. And what I learned, we can't know everything. We
mhm,
can know a few things really, really well, and we can build processes around those things so that we can provide great client service. And those processes also keep us sane.
mhm,
So some learning lessons. And
mhm. Very important. As I think about our business owner audience, those are so key. And many times a young business doesn't want to say no to anyone. We've got to pay next month's bills. We want everybody that will will hire us or buy our product. That does feed a kind of a monster that can take a lot of time. And when you talk about niche, my advice to so many business owners is find the specific thing that you are good at and you enjoy. Both of those things you mentioned, Cindy. If you have that niche, you can develop that to the point where you're way above your competition in being in that specific area. And it's what you love doing. And indeed, it may be to clients who are able to pay more because of your specialized service in that particular area. So we frequently are dealing with a potential customer asks for a lower price than the competitor said, I can do that. And they ask for a shorter delivery time, I can do that. And they ask for higher quality, I can do that. And they ask for, whatever else it might be, I need it in this color, I can do that,
Yeah.
and it's so hard to say no to some of those. Be all things to all people, you'll not excel at any of them. You won't be the best in that particular area. And I feel like that's a lot of what you were talking about there. In fact, when you say we didn't have a menu, I'm even thinking in terms of so many of my business owner clients, if they initially had a menu, it would be pages long because they don't want to say no to anything, and that's not impressive to a potential customer who's looking for one thing on that menu. If mine is just one among dozens or hundreds, I have a tendency to believe they're really not good at what I'm after. And yet, if I can focus in on a niche that is my specialty, and that matches, maybe it does match fewer customers or potential customers, but it matches them much better. And it just feels like that is a lesson learned by a lot of business owners the hard way.
True. And you think about it, like you think about going to the doctor. If you break a bone, you're not going to go see a cardiologist. You're going to
Mm-hmm.
go to a doctor that knows how to fix your broken bone.
Mm-hmm.
So it's similar. Knowing exactly what you
Mm-hmm.
do is key.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's very good. Very good advice. Hopefully, a few business owners won't have to reinvent the wheel when they hear of your experience that way. Tell me now what differentiates your business from others in your industry. What's different about KAC?
Well, our primary goal is to educate our clients about bookkeeping and tax matters. So we don't just crank out tax returns. We serve small business owners and we want to give them attention throughout the year.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they just come to us once a year, at
Mm-hmm.
that point in time, it might be between, January and April where we're looking back at last year. There's nothing we can do at that point.
Right.
It's done. All we're doing is putting the numbers together to put on a tax return, and we're not useful in that capacity really.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
we want to help them throughout the year to plan. And so we have about 40 seats on our bus, so to speak. That's about the number of business clients that we can serve well and
Okay.
serve throughout the year. That's a little different than what you see at other firms.
I wonder, what would you do differently if you had it to do over again? You told us about a few mistakes along the way, and maybe this is a similar question, but if you could go back to the beginning of KAC and
Mhm.
redo it, would you do things any different?
Just going back to what we were talking about earlier, knowing who my ideal client is from the
Okay.
beginning and learning to say no to those that we can't
Mm-hmm.
serve well and serve efficiently. And then number two is having a mentor from the beginning and not putting
Oh.
myself on an island. Because like I spoke to earlier, it's important to have a community around you and not isolate yourself as a business owner because you can learn so many things from the people around you. So having particularly a mentor, I think would have been a good idea from the beginning. Somebody to bounce ideas off of and to tell me,
Mm.
no, I think you're going down the wrong path, would have
Mm.
been really helpful. And then number two is to know your weaknesses when you go
Mm.
into business. For example, my weakness it was in billing, which is a key aspect of business. If it were left up to me, I would give it all away. I'd
Mm.
give the farm away because I want to help people. I would make this a charity, not a business.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I had to end up putting up guardrails for myself. I had to hand the billing processes over to someone else. So I detail what I do, and then someone else is my billing person. Actually, my son-in-law does the billing for us.
Okay.
So having those guardrails in place to make sure that your weaknesses don't become detrimental to the
Mm-hmm.
business is
Mm-hmm.
important.
That's great. That's great advice. I'd like to go back to that mentorship a little bit and just ask your advice to business owners about how to find a mentor. What would you suggest?
That's a hard one.
Oh,
If you
okay.
know someone, if you know someone who's been down this path, a business ownership
Mhm.
path already, then that's great because you can um, you've already got that person. You can bounce ideas off of each other, but also finding someone paid, like a paid coach, is a good
Hmm.
idea too.
Hmm. Right,
Um,
right. Yeah, we do feel like we're able to coach people. Nothing falls through the cracks. I also find it interesting how many times business owners are comfortable being a mentor for someone, or maybe
Mm.
even long for that. You know,
Yeah,
the opportunity. When I just asked you a while ago if you could go back and do it over again, I think for a lot of business owners, if I could talk to somebody at the stage I was at early in my business, I could give them, I could help them
that's
with that.
true.
And I feel
That's
like most enjoy that. Most are
true.
actually, they welcome the opportunity to be a mentor to someone. But when you're the mentee, or when you're someone looking for a mentor, you don't see it that way. You think, well, this would be an intrusion on their time, or why would they want to help me? But I think once they actually reach out, they may be surprised how often, through networking or through just experience, or maybe someone that recently retired, or maybe easier to find a mentor that would take you under their wing than people expect.
That is true. And like you said, it's all about perspective because when we're looking for advice, we think of it as an imposition to someone
Right,
else.
right.
When people, that have passed that stage in business are willing to help. And I think it's just a matter of talking to people. I know that people who, particularly people who are introverts like me, I tend to just kind of shrink back and hide. But
Mhm,
really,
mhm,
when you're willing to put yourself out there and ask for help,
mhm.
there's a lot of people out there who would love to help you.
Right. They may even count it a blessing. SWOT analysis, knowing your own weaknesses, I think was the term that you used. And I found it interesting in a conversation with a business owner recently. He had done a SWOT analysis very early on when he was first just putting his business plan together and even figuring out what the plan would be. And he had a kind of an interesting experience. I'd be curious to know your thoughts on this. He did, as you were saying, he kind of looked at his own. He was just a one-man show at the time, looked at his own strengths and his own weaknesses, and then looked at where are the opportunities and what are the threats, to what the different ideas that he might have had for it. Well, of course, just as you said, there were certain things he realized he was weak at, and he needed to. Well, early on, he realized I got to find somebody else to help me with that, or else get educated, get good at it. And that sometimes is an answer to that too. When we do a SWOT analysis with someone, sometimes that is to find out where you need to work, on getting better at things. But sometimes it's also putting people in place to cover that. Again, like I said a while ago, we just don't want things to fall through the cracks. If we recognize there are dangers in a small business, and this is one of those, is it a weakness for you? What are we going to do about it? We either need to fill that by you being educated in it, or we need to fill it by having somebody else in that role. But the interesting thing that he found was when he did the SWOT analysis in his regional area for the particular business that he was looking at, there were many competitors, and he decided to do a SWOT analysis on them. And he
Oh,
found where their weaknesses were often were where his strengths were. And that I thought that was an intriguing approach, where he found his initial thought was, you know what, this may not be the business for me because we have a lot of competitors in the area.
yeah.
But then when he looked a little deeper, he did that SWOT analysis not only on himself and on his potential business, but on the competitors. He recognized, you know what, I'm going to use the word, there is a niche here. There is
I
something
was about to
that
say
that
that.
I can fill this void. Anyway, I just thought that was kind
That's
of interesting.
a great way to approach it because that's exactly how you find your niche
Mm-hmm.
when you figure out where your strengths are and where you can fill a void in the market.
So, Cindy, how can our viewers and listeners contact you or find out more about your business?
Well, we have a website
Okay,
at kacconsulting.com. And we've actually just recently launched our website. And so we're pretty proud of it. We hope you'll go check it out.
great,
And also, you can reach out by phone at 210-988-2841.
great. We will also put those in the show notes for anybody watching or listening to this podcast. They'll be able to see those in the show notes too, and we encourage them to reach out to you, Cindy, and find out if
Great.
they are in your niche, if they're
Great.
the right ones for you. Cindy, thanks for sharing your story. It's been a very interesting, good conversation. I hope that our audience finds it informative as well. I'm sure they will. I think it'll be valuable to them. This is the Business Spotlight Series with Scott Lawson from Action Coach of Coastal Bend and Cindy Montoya. of KAC Consulting. Please be sure to like and subscribe so you can continue to see great content. Thank you for watching or listening today. Bye for now.